Welcome back, everyone, to the deep dive. You know how much we love to explore these big ideas, and today's deep dive is no exception.
No kidding. Today we're taking on a really fascinating chapter from book Echotruth, Volume 2, Chapter 7 to be exact. It's called Resilience Unveiled, Standing Strong in Tough Times.
Now, you might think, based on that title, that you know what you're in for, but trust me, this chapter takes us down a very unexpected path.
A very unexpected path indeed. This chapter explores the nature of consciousness itself and dives into what happens after we leave this physical life behind. It's pretty heady stuff.
I think all of us have pondered those big questions at one point or another, right?
For sure. Everyone wants to know what happens after we die. Where do we go? What are we? What's the point of it all?
And this chapter offers some truly unique and thought-provoking perspectives on those questions.
Really unique. And I think our listeners are going to be surprised by some of the ideas we're about to unpack.
We'll be touching on some really big ideas today. Things like consciousness as self-awareness. There's this really compelling mirror analogy that we'll discuss that helps us understand our interconnectedness to everything around us. Then there's the persistent nature of the soul and the very fabric of physical reality as presented in this chapter.
We'll also be talking about our ethical responsibilities in this life and the concept of rebirth.
Lots to cover. So should we just dive right in?
Let's dive right in. I think the best way to start is with the chapter's definition of consciousness.
Right. So how does this chapter define consciousness? What's the core concept here?
Well, according to this text, consciousness all boils down to self-awareness. It's that very basic understanding you have of your own individuality. It's that feeling of you-ness that makes you feel separate and unique from everything else around you.
So it's more than just being awake, right? It's knowing that you are awake.
Exactly. You've got it. But here's where it gets even more interesting. The text also proposes that absolutely everything ultimately originates from a single fundamental source.
Okay. That makes sense. I mean, if you think about it, everything has to come from somewhere, right?
Right. But then how does this sense of separateness arise? How do we go from a unified origin to this feeling of being other?
It's like we're all individual pieces of a giant puzzle, but how did those pieces come to see themselves as separate from the whole?
Exactly. And that's where this really interesting idea of the mirror analogy comes in. The text suggests that this feeling of otherness arises through reflection, much like how we see reflections everywhere in the universe. Think about it for a second. Reflections are everywhere. It's a pretty universal phenomenon.
Okay, I get that. But how does seeing my reflection in the mirror, for example, help me understand this idea of otherness emerging from a single source?
Well, when you look in the mirror, right, you immediately recognize that the image you see isn't the real you.
Right. I mean, it looks like me, but it's not actually me.
Exactly. It's simply a representation, a slightly different perspective of your physical form. And it's this act of seeing yourself from this altered viewpoint that establishes a sense of difference. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's like creating a separation, a distinction between the observer and the observed.
Exactly. You got it. And in that difference, that distinction, your awareness of your true self actually becomes more clear.
So the reflection isn't me, but by seeing it, I actually understand me better.
Precisely. You've got it. And the text actually takes this concept a step further. It talks about multiple incarnations and refers to an infinite corridor of mirrors. What do you think about that?
An infinite corridor of mirrors. That's a pretty trippy image. So how does that tie into this idea of consciousness and reflection?
Well, if we accept that everything originates from this single source, then all these individual expressions of source, like you and me perceiving ourselves as these separate beings, would suggest that the source itself has this inherent self-reflective quality.
Okay, so it's like the source is constantly looking at itself and creating these reflections, and we are some of those reflections.
That's a good way to put it. So imagine that endless hallway lined with mirrors, creating all these countless reflections, each one also having that same self-reflective nature.
So self-awareness isn't limited to us as humans. It's built into existence itself.
Exactly. It's a part of the fabric of existence, operating on both the largest cosmic scale and all the way down to the smallest individual level.
And what about these multiple lifetimes? Where do they fit into this mirror analogy?
The text presents those multiple lifetimes as different mirrors in that corridor. Each one offers a slightly different reflection, a new angle, a unique perspective. And all of these different perspectives come together to form a more complete picture of the whole. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's like each lifetime is a new chance to learn and experience something new.
Right. A new opportunity for growth and a deeper understanding of ourselves and the universe. It's fascinating, right?
It is. And there's also this idea of a slight delay when you see your reflection. Why is that detail important in this analogy?
That's a great point. That slight delay, the fact that you're not seeing the absolute present moment, further emphasizes the difference between your true self and that reflected image. It highlights that there's a subtle but really important distinction between you, the observer, and the reflection the observed.
So it's not just a visual difference, it's a difference in time as well.
You got it. And the text suggests that this awareness of a slight separation actually deepens your understanding of existing in the present moment. It's a reminder that despite our seeming separateness, we all come from the same source and are interconnected in ways we can't even fully comprehend. It's really mind-blowing when you think about it.
It really is. So basically, existence is fundamentally reflective. And all these reflections, big or small, contribute to this ever-expanding self-awareness across all of existence. That brings us to a question I think a lot of us have pondered: what happens to our soul, this self-aware reflection, when our physical body dies?
That's the big question, right?
It is. Does the soul simply vanish?
Well, according to this chapter, the answer is a big fat no.
Oh, so what happens to it then?
The text argues that the soul can't be created or destroyed, only transformed. It's like energy, it can change forms but never truly disappear. So if you have consciousness, that unique reflection of source that you embody along with your soul will always retain that fundamental self-awareness even after your physical body is gone.
So it doesn't just disappear, it goes somewhere else.
Well, not quite in the way we typically imagine going somewhere. The text suggests that this transformation eventually leads to the formation of a new personality, a new awareness through the process of reincarnation.
Okay. Wow. So we're reborn into a new life.
That's the idea presented here. And this concept of transformation is really key to understanding why the soul persists, according to this text. Does that make sense?
It does. It's a pretty radical departure from the traditional idea of heaven and hell.
Right, it is. But it's also a really interesting and thought-provoking perspective. And speaking of radical ideas, the text also touches on the nature of physical reality itself. It suggests that physical reality isn't truly real in a definitive sense, and at least not independently of our consciousness. What do you think about that?
That's a pretty mind-bending concept. So you're saying that what we perceive as the physical world is actually just a projection of our consciousness.
That's the idea being presented here. The text compares it to our image in a mirror, suggesting that physical reality as we experience it is no more substantial than our reflection. It's a pretty big claim, right?
It is. It's like saying that the world outside of us doesn't really exist, at least not in the way we typically think of it.
Right. It's not that it doesn't exist at all, but rather that our experience of it is filtered through our consciousness.
Yeah.
It's all happening within the realm of our individual minds. Think about it. Our brains are constantly constructing the reality we experience based on the limited sensory information they receive. Like even in complete darkness, our brains can create visual perceptions based on input from our other senses. It's pretty amazing, isn't it?
That's incredible. It really highlights how powerful our minds are.
Exactly. And the text uses that as a parallel to explain how physical reality might work. It's all about perception and interpretation. And this idea also ties back to that concept of multiple expressions of source. Just because other forms of source might not look exactly like us doesn't mean they aren't equally valid reflections of that same fundamental source.
Right. Just like in that infinite corridor of mirrors, there are countless different reflections, all stemming from the same source.
You've got it. We're all connected in ways we can't even begin to imagine. And speaking of connections, the text also makes this really important point about there being no opportunity for change after our physical death. That really stuck out to me.
It did for me too. So what's the significance of that idea? Why is it so important?
Well, the text emphasizes that this current physical life is the place, the arena, where our soul is meant to fulfill its ethical obligations and go through all the necessary experiences for growth.
So this life is incredibly important. It's not just some kind of waiting room for something else.
Exactly. This life is the main event. It's where we learn those crucial lessons about personal responsibility and actively work toward fulfilling our ethical duties. Once our physical life ends, that particular chapter is closed. There's no going back to rewrite it.
That really puts things into perspective, doesn't it?
It does. It makes you think about how you're spending your time, right? What are you doing with this precious opportunity?
It certainly does. So what does the text suggest happens after we die?
The text suggests that when we die, our core awareness, our essence, detaches from the physical body and eventually dissolves back into pure energy. And eventually, that energy is used to form a new personality, a new awareness, and the cycle begins again.
So it's not about punishment or reward in the afterlife. It's about continuing this journey of growth and evolution.
That's the core idea being presented here. And this perspective really highlights the importance of every action, every choice we make in this life. It's all about learning and growing and becoming more aligned with the truth of who we are. What stands out to you about that idea?
It's a hopeful message, isn't it? It suggests that even if we make mistakes, there's always another chance to learn and grow. And it emphasizes the power of making choices that are in alignment with truth and love.
You've hit the nail on the head. It's all about making choices that bring us closer to that fundamental source of goodness and love that we all come from. And that brings us to another really interesting section of the text, the part that deals with truth and creation. This section talks about inherent laws that govern the distribution of truth.
Okay, so there are rules about how truth is revealed and understood. That's interesting. What are those rules?
Well, the text proposes that there are these fundamental inherent laws and guidelines that come from the very source of creation itself. And these principles determine how truth is revealed, understood, and experienced throughout existence.
So truth isn't random, it's guided by these universal laws.
Exactly. The text uses an analogy of dormant life needing specific nourishment to thrive. It suggests that our spirit form, after we transition from this life, needs those foundational laws to be revived and continue its journey.
Okay, that's a powerful image. It makes sense that there would be some kind of order to it all. What else does the text say about truth?
This part also talks about this really cool idea of spirituality and technology coming together in harmony.
Spirituality and technology. That's an interesting combination. How does the text see those two things working together?
Well, the text suggests that as we understand spiritual principles more deeply, and as those principles become more aligned with our technological advancements, we'll actually see even faster technological progress. And this progress will be driven by more conscious and benevolent intentions.
So instead of technology being used for selfish or destructive purposes, it'll be guided by a higher purpose.
Exactly. It's about using our knowledge and our tools to create a better world for everyone. It also touches on the potential of genetic engineering, but cautions against letting our egos inflate our abilities.
We shouldn't think we're more powerful than the source of creation just because we can manipulate genes.
Right. We're still operating within the framework of those primal source laws. And the text reminds us to not get too caught up in our own cleverness. We need to remember where our true power comes from.
Humility is definitely an important virtue, especially when dealing with something as powerful as genetic engineering. What else does the text say about the source of creation?
It emphasizes that the source is the ultimate creative force, and that we can see its influence all around us in the beauty of nature and the vastness of the cosmos. It encourages us to be more aware of those signs and try to interpret them.
It's like nature is speaking to us if we just take the time to listen.
Precisely. It's a constant reminder that we're not alone in this universe, and that we're part of something much bigger than ourselves. What are your thoughts on that idea?
I love that idea. It's a reminder to be humble and to appreciate the beauty and wonder of the world around us. And it also highlights the importance of our connection to nature.
I agree. And the text also reminds us that nature itself demonstrates the absence of deities or humans with unlimited power. It's a call to recognize our own inner power and to not be controlled by others.
We have the power to choose our own path and create our own destiny.
Exactly. And that means being aware of those who might try to dominate or control us. There are always those who try to instill fear or negativity in others to hinder their pursuit of truth.
It's like those who try to dim the light of others because they're afraid of their own darkness.
That's a great way to put it. And the text reminds us to be discerning, to be able to tell the difference between truth and falsehood, and to always communicate with honest intentions. What are some other things you found interesting in this chapter?
I found the section on dreams to be really fascinating. The text highlights the importance of dreams as a way for our conscious and subconscious minds to communicate.
Absolutely. Dreams can offer us so much insight into ourselves. They can provide warnings, enhance our awareness, and even bring us a sense of tranquility.
And the text emphasizes that the laws of creation are designed to encourage us to take responsibility for our actions, rather than feeling guilty for our mistakes. It's a reminder that we're always learning and growing, and that it's okay to make mistakes along the way.
It's about learning from our experiences and becoming better versions of ourselves. And speaking of becoming better, the text then delves into this whole concept of virtue and righteousness. How did you interpret this part?
It really resonated with me. It defines virtue as ethical conduct and values combined with intelligence and wisdom.
That's a great summary. It's not just about being good. It's about being good in an intelligent and wise way.
Right. It requires self-education and personal discipline. It's about making a conscious effort to develop our character. And I like that it distinguishes between mere belief and self-belief.
It's a crucial distinction. Belief can sometimes be passive, but self-belief is active. It's a powerful force for transformation. And this chapter lists several core virtues, doesn't it?
It does. Genuine love is at the top of the list. It's presented as the most important virtue, the foundation for a fulfilling life. And then there are other virtues like affection for others, a love for truth, integrity, justice, accountability, humility, and courage.
Those are some powerful virtues. And it's interesting that the text emphasizes that these virtues aren't given to us by some external force. We have to actively cultivate them.
It's a process of growth and development. And the more we practice these virtues, the stronger they become. What else stood out to you in this section?
Well, the text makes a distinction between fairness and righteousness. It says that fairness is rooted in righteousness.
So fairness is about treating everyone equally, but righteousness is about a deeper commitment to justice.
That's it. It's about standing up for what's right, even when it's difficult. And it's about being impartial, ensuring that everyone receives what they deserve.
And that kind of righteousness leads to happiness and tranquility, not just for ourselves, but for society as a whole.
Exactly. It creates a more harmonious and balanced world. The text also talks about the importance of moderation in our desires, which is a key element of living a virtuous life.
It's about finding that balance between our needs and wants. And it's about being mindful of how our actions impact others.
Right. It's about using our power responsibly. And speaking of using our power responsibly, the chapter then shifts gears and talks about the dangers of passivity.
It paints a pretty stark picture of what happens when we let passivity take over our lives.
It really does. It talks about how passivity can lead to avoiding challenges, getting stuck in negative thought patterns, and even compromising our values. What are your thoughts on that?
I think we've all experienced those moments of passivity, those times when we let fear or doubt hold us back.
It happens to everyone. But the text emphasizes the importance of recognizing those patterns and actively working to overcome them. It encourages us to embrace courage as a superpower that can help us break free from those limiting beliefs and behaviors. What resonated with you in that part?
I really liked how the text distinguishes between moderation and passivity.
That's a good point. It's an important distinction. Moderation is about making conscious choices, while passivity is about letting circumstances dictate our lives.
And the text is very clear that passivity is not a virtue. It's something that we should actively work to overcome. And then it introduces this idea of courageous strength as the key to resilience. How does the text define that strength?
It defines courageous strength as the unwavering determination to defend what is good and true.
It's about standing up for what we believe in, even when it's hard. It's about having the inner fortitude to face challenges head on.
Exactly. And that kind of strength comes from aligning ourselves with truth and acting in accordance with our values. And the text contrasts that with the weakness that comes from being controlled by fear, laziness, or timidity. It's a reminder that we have a choice. We can choose to be courageous, or we can choose to let our fears control us.
Powerful stuff. And then the chapter delves into these really interesting topics, understanding prophecy and ancestral trauma. I found the text's perspective on prophets to be very intriguing.
Me too. It's not the traditional view of prophets as these superhuman beings. The text suggests that true prophets are actually just ordinary people who've gained a deep understanding of truth through their own experiences and struggles. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's a more relatable perspective. It suggests that anyone has the potential to become a prophet if they're willing to do the work, to go through the challenges and learn from their experiences.
That's a good point. It's not about some special power or ability. It's about a deep commitment to truth and a willingness to share that truth with others. And the text also emphasizes that prophecies aren't meant to predict the future, but rather to guide us towards a better path. They're warnings about potential dangers and encouragements to make better choices.
It's about steering humanity away from harmful paths and creating a more harmonious future. And what about ancestral trauma? How did you interpret that part?
That was a really interesting section. It explains ancestral trauma as those unresolved emotional patterns from our ancestors that can get passed down through generations.
It's like those wounds from the past that can still impact us today, even if we're not consciously aware of them.
Exactly. And the text suggests that we have a responsibility to address those wounds, to heal ourselves and break those negative cycles.
It's about taking ownership of our own lives and making conscious choices that lead to healing and growth.
Right. We can't blame our ancestors for our problems, but we can choose to learn from their mistakes and create a better future for ourselves and for future generations.
That's a powerful message. And then the chapter concludes with this section on the art of respectful negotiation and energetic clearing.
That was a great way to tie everything together. It highlighted the importance of treating everyone with respect, even in situations where there's disagreement or conflict.
It's about finding common ground and working together to create solutions that benefit everyone involved. It emphasizes the importance of integrity and fairness in our interactions and the power of forgiveness and reconciliation.
And it encourages us to always strive for peaceful resolutions and to make decisions that are in alignment with the laws of creation.
It's a beautiful message of hope and unity and a reminder that we all have the power to create a better world.
It's a powerful reminder that even in the face of challenges, we have the strength and the wisdom within us to overcome them.
Wow, that was a lot to unpack, and I feel like we've only just scratched the surface of this incredible chapter. There's so much depth and wisdom here.
There really is. It's a chapter that you could come back to again and again and always find something new to ponder. What were some of the key takeaways for you?
I think the biggest takeaway for me is the emphasis on personal responsibility. This text makes it clear that we are the architects of our own destiny. We have the power to choose our thoughts, our actions, and our beliefs, and those choices shape not only our present life, but also our future lives.
I completely agree. It's a call to be more conscious and intentional in our lives and to make choices that are aligned with our highest values.
And the mirror analogy is so powerful. It's a reminder that we're all connected, that we're all reflections of the same source.
It's a beautiful way to see the world, isn't it? It encourages us to see the divine in everyone and everything.
It does, and it reminds us that we're all on this journey together. So as we wrap up our deep dive today, I want to leave our listeners with a question to ponder.
It's a question.
Keeping that powerful mirror analogy in mind, what aspects of your current life are acting as reflections? What are those experiences, relationships, or challenges trying to teach you about yourself? What can you learn from those reflections that will help you grow and evolve on your journey?
It's a powerful question. And it's one that we can all benefit from asking ourselves. We're constantly surrounded by reflections if we just take the time to see them.
Exactly. So thank you for joining us on this incredible journey. We hope you've enjoyed our deep dive.
And until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep reflecting.
We'll see you soon.